Welcome back to another Archaeo-Scope. An Archaeo-Scope is kind of like an inverted question of doom, where rather than you sending me a question to try and answer to the best of my ability by video, I put a question out there by video for you guys to go away, consider, comment below, debate, discuss, and together we come up with an answer which hopefully one of us on our own might not have considered. Usually these questions have like an archaeological slant to them, and sometimes they're a little bit silly. Today's question is kind of a bit of both, really. It's a bit of a busy week, and I thought why not ask this question this week. Now my question today is inspired by a conversation I had a couple of weeks ago, actually, during the Easter weekend. Mrs. Soup and I were visiting friends, having cooked meals with these people that we call our friends, and we were basically having a good time. And it was lovely Easter holidayness going on. Chocolate eggs were floating around. It was all grand. And in one particular room, in one particular conversation, we had, I think, like a doctor, maybe a teacher, a social worker, a couple of other those sort of professional type people. And the conversation actually somehow got around to donor cards, the merits of donor cards. Now, in case you don't know, a donor card is something which you can have, say, in your wallet, which essentially says, if I die, well, not if I die, when I die, you can use whatever organs you see fit from my body to help save the life or improve the life of someone else who's on an organ donor waiting list. It's a very, I think, admirable thing. I have to say, I haven't yet got a donor card. I'm going to have to consider doing that. But then again, who'd want this face or these eyes, But anyway, of course, things like kidneys and livers, these are very, very useful stuff. So, face transplants, what am I talking about? Donor cards. So we're on the topic of donor cards, and the question came up essentially whether or not, for example, all doctors, all medical professionals, including say social workers, should be made to have a donor card, so that they're setting an example for their colleagues, but also for their patients and everyone else that they come into contact with. Essentially, a entry level move towards getting more and more people on the donor card register, as it were. And it was an interesting conversation, and essentially it boiled down to the fact of whether or not this is actually infringing on people's rights, and whether or not people actually just felt icky about the idea of being chopped up, essentially, after death. Now, this then, as soon as death came into the conversation, this then moved on to archaeology. And people said, well, what about archaeologists? Well, what about archaeologists? And they said, well, shouldn't archaeologists have some sort of donor card that says, well, after I'm dead, you can dig me up. You can use me for archaeological science. You can maybe bury me and see how it is that I decompose. You can use my bones for isotopic analysis checks and various other analyses which will help verify scientific methods in archaeology. And I was like, oh, blimey, that's a good question. That's a good point. Shouldn't we? Should we? I don't know. So that's basically what my question is today, what my point is today. It's like I say, slightly silly, slightly banterish, definitely came out of banter, but it's actually quite an interesting point. Now, two things come to mind really when this topic was really presented to me, and this is basically what I said. So first of all, I know quite a few archaeologists who are extremely squeamish about their own mortality, never mind the prospect of being dug up. There are some archaeologists, because we spend so much time, for example, looking at the dead, or looking at how long, say, the Mesolithic dead, or Paleolithic dead, or Neolithic dead have been in the ground, or how long that they've been in their chosen burial state, that we sort of sometimes seem to respect that sense of quasi-permanence to the grave. The idea of being dug up, say, within a generation or two, or even within 200 years of one's burial, is quite unnerving to some archaeologists. They'd much rather be in the ground maybe for 1,000 years and then be dug up. And they said, yes, but that's hypocritical. You guys, you dig up everyone, And I said, that's not fair. But actually, no, what they were getting at was the fact that, for example, and it's happened to me on a dig that I've been on before, Sometimes graveyards are just in the way, and you need to verify what human remains are in certain places before, say, building can take place. And sometimes that necessitates moving, digging up those burials, possibly reburying them, but certainly for a while having them in a lab or on a shelf somewhere. And so, yes, okay, lots of archaeologists would be squeamish at the thought of being dug up, but at the same time, as these people in the room were saying, and I suppose as the public would say, hypocrite, if all of us said, oh, no, I don't want to be dug up. So that argument was sort of, I suppose, reached a bit of a stalemate there. The second point that came to mind, though, was the fact that I know so many archaeologists who would use this as an opportunity to monkey with their future colleagues, as it were, or future compatriots. For example, I suppose the most benign version that I know of is a professor who had his remains put in, his ashes put in a beaker, a Bronze Age beaker, and buried out, I think, in the Salisbury Plain. So that's a very, very nice, I suppose, version, because he spent his life studying that stuff. But still, it's kind of monkeying with the archaeological record. And that's the most benign, all the way through to really devious things. Like I know one guy who wants to try and live off fish for as much of his life as possible, just so he can mess around with the RC, radiocarbon dates that will come back from his skeleton. If you don't know why that would mess with it, it's to do with the absorption rate of carbon through water as opposed to the rest of the environment. I may well make a video on it in the near future. But basically, it can make him seem as though he's not from the age that he's from. It can mess with the results, all the way through to, for example, I think people wanting to be buried, say, with an Iron Age sword and an iPod. Now, that's less of a concern, because archaeologists are very good at actually going, well, this is clearly, well, actually, probably what they'll say is, we've got another archaeologist. He thinks he's being clever, or she thinks she's being clever. Ha ha ha. And then they'll just dismiss all those random objects. But I suppose there is that element of actually archaeologists not taking it entirely seriously, because of the morbid sense of humour that we tend to have, and because, well, it's quite a tempting thing to do, isn't it? If you know that you've signed up to be dug up in the future, well, why not leave some sort of a message, or why make it easy for them? So yeah, those are the two thoughts that came to mind, and ultimately we came to the conclusion that actually it probably would be a sort of a good idea. And also, I mean, on a serious note, Mrs. Soup and I had a friend who a couple of years ago unfortunately died. She'd been very ill for a long time, and she died. But she'd always wanted to be a doctor, and when she passed, she did donate her remains, her body, to medical research. We had a lovely service. We had a lovely time to say goodbye to her, and it's not like then there was a truck outside waiting to take the coffin away, but that was a very fitting, honourable, and very good thing that she did. It was an incredible thing that she did, because she was furthering the careers, furthering the ability to learn about the human body, in particular with the conditions that she had, for future doctors and future students. And maybe that actually is the tone which we should be taking when we think about this. If an archaeologist is to take on a dig me up donor card, then perhaps actually that's the tone that we should be doing this with, is one of actually we're furthering the topic that we love, the field that we adore, and also the professionals who we understand and respect. We're helping future generations of archaeologists in ways which actually perhaps we would have benefited from had there been a dig me up donor card 100 years ago, So it's on the surface it's a bit daft, a bit morbid, but actually there's some serious thoughts and questions here, and I thought I'd just throw it out there for you guys to think about and comment below. I want to know what you think, basically. Do you think this is a good idea? Do you think this is a silly idea? Do you think it should just be for medical professionals, or for example for So that's like, it should be for the furthering of the medical field in terms of donating your body, or that donating organs should just be for helping people, as it were, in terms of, as I say, replacing organs or making their quality of life better? Or do you think actually that if you are in a profession where your body could be useful in the future, that you should consider donating it to it? I'm not sure where I sit on this. I'm not sure actually if there was a dig me up donor card, I'm not sure that I would dive in. And yet I do see the merits of diving in. So if it's not, like I say, this is why Archaeo-Scopes exist. I want to see the discussion, and I want to see if we can sort of try and persuade one another to an interesting perspective on this one. Anyway, I'm sure that there'll be lots of interesting comments and thoughts below. Please do share them. And as ever, until next time, do take care. Bye-bye.